Hello, everyone, and welcome to CDO's magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, coming to you today from Toronto, Canada. On behalf of the CDO magazine, I have the pleasure of introducing Sabrina Donley, who is the Senior Key Account Manager at CybrCastle. Welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you, Robert. It is awesome to be here.
Well, it's really excited for me as well to meet you. But I wonder if we can start with a little bit of background, maybe introduce yourself to our audience.
Absolutely. So I've spent the last 7 years supporting mid-sized organizations on risk management and strategy at the board and executive level. And the past 3 of those years have been focused on helping them achieve a better cybersecurity and acceptable risk through our company, CybrCastle.
How would you suggest that mid-sized companies, because again, this is maybe your kind of sweet spot, how would you sort of position that a mid-sized companies build their security program without getting overwhelmed, as you say? Now, I believe that, we talked about different roles or hats that you say that may wear different hats that must be worn. Could you maybe explain that process and identify those roles or hats that they wear?
The first hat really is that risk manager. If there was a building project, they're kind of that investment advisor helping answer, okay, is this worth doing? Is this right sized to our organization, the spend of it? Will it fit our mission? Is it in line with best practices? So this is key because you could spend a fortune on cybersecurity, let's be honest, right?
Yes, yeah.
And especially mid-sized companies, your budget might only be this much. So how do you kind of get the biggest bang for your buck and preventing cyber attacks at a level that you're comfortable with? So that risk manager is really important hat to wear. The second hat, which I see very commonly, this is a challenge for organizations, is the executive team and the board. So they are asking, they're really the investor in that situation. They're saying, okay, can we afford to do this? How are we going to set this up for success? I see really often, because a lot of executive teams and the board, they don't really feel like they know that much about cybersecurity. So they're like, our IT team, I'm sure that they can handle this.
Right.
And so they kind of take a hands-off approach. But because it is inherently a financial risk to the company, them understanding that will be critical for being able to prevent things that they don't want to happen, right? Business continuity type issues.
Sure. Coming back to that 46% and 86% chance that it may affect a mid-sized company, fiduciary responsibility on board level. So yeah, so those are
Exactly.
two. What are the other two hats and roles that you talk about?
Absolutely. So the third hat is really that security manager hat. Think of them, they're kind of like the general contractor of a building. So they might not be doing all the project work, but they've got to find the people, the tools, the materials. They've got to manage the change across the organization, have communication across departments. So it's a managerial level that also has oversight of, okay, here's what the executive team wants. Here's what also needs to get done. The key thing with this is helping to sustain the momentum. Otherwise, things can get stuck very quickly, or they can get overwhelmed.
And the fourth role, the fourth hat?
So the fourth hat,
yep, go ahead,
is the kind of security analyst hat. So this can be someone who's actually doing the implementation. If you go back to our building analogy, they're the actual construction team or a particular specialist that's helping with something. Now, there's many parts of a security program. The people process technology part, it's a very diverse skill set that's needed to do each of those individual things. And a lot of companies, the gaps can range from like 30 to 50 gaps that they need to fill. So each of those gaps has a specialized skill set needed that needs to be managed.
So I love the way that you had the analogy to building and the 4 different hats that people or organizations must wear. However, in an ideal world, a company will have or should have these 4 roles or 4 hats as you talk to them.
Yes.
What happens if these hats aren't worn. Can you give some real world examples that you've seen?
So there was a manufacturing company worked with, they've got about 500 employees, multiple locations, and they thought, we're actually pretty good against legacy threats. Like we feel pretty good about that. We invested in that early,
Right.
We're good to go. But what they lacked is that risk management hat that was showing, hey, this is not the full picture. Things have evolved a lot in the past couple of years. And that typical mindset of have a really hard shell on the outside, that's not enough anymore. Because if you people, process, social engineering, that gets straight into the organization. And they found that if a cyber criminal got in, they basically could get admin access pretty quickly. And they were shocked about that. So they ended up having us come in to be that risk management hat, but before they didn't have that visibility. Another challenge that a similar manufacturing company ran into was capacity issues. This is the biggest thing I see. 7-person IT team, you'd think, oh, well, they've got plenty, right? They got plenty of capacity, but sure. That was just to focus on day-to-day IT, right? Focused on growing the business, focused on productivity. And the team didn't feel like they had the specific expertise in the cybersecurity projects and gaps that they needed. So they ended up getting super overwhelmed. And so what we ended up helping them to do is say, okay, what are you good at? What can you uniquely do? What's a skill set that's not in place yet? Let's help you bring in the right resources for this so you can still keep up with your day-to-day, but start filling these gaps in a way that you can make your next audit or you get to that level of risk that's acceptable. So capacity issues is another key challenge.
Oh, listen, there's seems to be a lot of them out there. One of the things that this leads to is probably a maturing of their cybersecurity. So let's say that we've got some listeners that are realizing that perhaps the people that should be wearing the hats are not involved or don't have these roles, and it's impacting their level of cybersecurity maturity. What can they do?
It's really helping them either through like a fractional chief information security officer, also called CISO, we call it cyber ops, to kind of adjust to the ebb and flow of that security program. The best thing really is it costs less than even hiring one full-time person.
So CyberCastle, then, just coming back to your organization, right? You're espousing that, look, don't go with the 4 full-time folks because you won't need them all the time. You just need them at the crucial times, at the right time. Why not come to us? We've got a program that can enable all of the roles and the hats that you've talked about to deliver a solid cyber security program and mature their cyber programs internally, right? So
that's correct. Yes.
If I were to ask you, for the executives that are listening to this, what sort of key takeaways would you recommend that an organization put in place? So I'll give you the floor, Sabrina. So what would you recommend?
I would recommend, so if you're an executive at your company, and I get with your IT team and watch this video together, because I think this will help you get common language to show, oh, I see that we're only wearing this hat maybe 2% of the time. And maybe that's why we keep getting stuck in this area.
And you are going to need a good partner like CyberCastle. So Sabrina, I'd like to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. We hope that we can get a chance to have you come back and see what's going on with CyberCastle in the future.
Absolutely. If people want to connect with me, if this has really resonated with them, you're welcome to add me on LinkedIn. I'm under Sabrina Donley. I post often about cybersecurity best practices or insight or up and coming attacks to think about. And if you are like, I think we need to have a frank conversation and align our team on how do we resource our cybersecurity program correctly and wear those 4 hats in a way that makes sense for our mid-sized company, go to our website and you can schedule a time with me. It is www.cybercastle. Again, that's CYBR castle.com.
I couldn't put it better myself. I think I'll take advantage of that offer as well. Sabrina, thank you very much indeed. And for our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.